So this painting that I'm going to do here, I'm just doing a little bit of prep work. It's going to be a painting of Newark Castle, and I went there with Sharon Hurst as part of the Travelling Brush Dippers, and it was a very windy day. We couldn't paint on the day, so I'm doing it back in the studio. And what I'm planning on using is some modelling paste. And I'm not sure how I'm going to put it on. I've got a variety of brushes and palettes, and I also want to press some leaves into it. So I have no idea how this is going to turn out. Oops. But I'm going to give it a go. I've got an idea in my head, and I'm just going to put this, starting off with a layer of this modelling paste coming across the middle. And I'm actually intending to do my painting on this area of the castle. Let's see what different tools. I've got an old toothbrush here. Let's see what sort of mark that makes. I do actually quite like the broken mark of the palette knife, but let's see how we get going. Just going to take it off the edge. I need a slightly bigger painting area. Dunking my fingers in it. Now I'm hoping between the two different cameras we can actually get some angles on this that will show the texture that I'm creating. Now, because of the way these leaves were blowing around, see, I brought the wildlife in with me. You can just about see this. Let's take you out of there. What I also want to do is just press some leaves in. I wasn't planning on leaving them there. I was going to print them in. Not working at all. Lifting too much out. Okay, so these little fellas are going to have to stay in the painting. That's okay with me. Pressing a few of these in. I may be able to lift these out later, but now I'm doing it this way. I quite like it. There. Let's have this one here. Now I may need to glue down a few little edges. and my leaves are sticking out quite a bit. Now it's probably, no, I know exactly why it is. It's because these weren't dried leaves, they weren't pressed leaves, these were just straight out of the garden. So what I'm going to do, see if I can peel these off and leave the indent of their shape, which is, let's see if we can see this. So we do have the shape of these leaves being left in the texture of the texture paste, surprisingly enough. I'm not worried if bits get left behind, I'm not worried at all. So I shall continue picking these off. Excuse me. And if some of it gets left behind, I'm not worried. So I have peeled away what I can, and now I'm just coming in with this brush just to see if there's any bits that are loose. And anything that's not loose, I'm quite happy to stay there. It will all be painted over, but anything that's loose, I just want to get rid of because it would affect the integrity of the finished painting. But I hope you can see here this beautiful sort of impressions that have been left in the texture medium, and that's what I'm going to work with. So the last thing I'm going to do before I get painting is just to put a layer of gesso over the whole lot. This will seal in any last bits of those leaves that are there and give me the perfect surface to work on. So this is the Pebio's white gesso, it's fabulous. I'm going to bring it just across a little bit, just down on my edges, just to make sure. This is a ready to use piece. It's a acrylic paper I'm working on here. So this is dried, my gesso is dried, my tape is coming off, but we'll see how we get on. I'm going to start off by painting my leaves. So these are now either the impression of the leaf, or some of the leaves are still under there, but the ones that are still under there are well adhered, well covered, and they should be absolutely fine. So my first job is just to do a bit of blocking in. So I'm taking some colours I've got on my palette, autumnal colours. These were definitely autumnal colours, and I'm going to start by just blocking in where my leaves are going to go. I can add detail to these later, but this is all just kind of a first layer. Technically this colour is mark off the palette, but I know from experience that's got some white, some yellow ochre and some red gold. I'm going to pick up a bit of yellow as well with my red gold. Have a brighter leaf for this one. Like I say, this is just blocking in to start off with, so I can see where all my leaves are going to be. I will probably add a few extra that I've not done the impressions of. That's a nice colour. So whilst I've got that one, let's have a couple of these over this side. So I'm starting off where I can see the impressions or see the leaves. This one a little bit more with the red gold, so it's a bit more coppery colour. That's the point, I've got copper paint, I could even use that. I'm going to speed up this process from here on in, so you can see it all, but you don't need to watch it in real time. So I've now drawn out my castle, and I'm going to put my castle on this central area. Don't quite know how it's going to work, but there is only one way to find out. So let's start just blocking in a bit of sky. I'm going to use some turquoise and ultramarine and white to start off with. I will adjust this, but needs a bit more white. Let's have a bit more turquoise as well. So I'm going to bring this in. This is unusual for me. I'm actually taking notice of my drawing quite carefully. So I'm just going to start off putting the blue in the sky, and then I can add to it in a bit. And I've got several photographs that I'm working from here, but I've got to be careful because one of them is a summer picture, and I don't want to accidentally make the sky and the trees, well, more the trees, too summery. majority of this bit will get painted over, but it's just the blocking stage. Seeing where my picture actually emerges. My base colour for the castle is yellow ochre, ultramarine and white. I now know where my painted area is going to be, so I'm going to take a break for a minute and come back. Right, so my base layer has now dried off. So what I need to do is come back in and go over the sky and just give it a bit more intensity. So let's get myself sorted. I'm going to put a few clouds in as well. So let me start by positioning where I want my clouds to be. Let's have a little bit of a cloud coming up here. On my reference picture, if you have a look, there is a cloud just up the top of the castle, and I quite like how that throws that castle into a bit of relief. I'm going to put a bit of a cloud coming in there. Actually not there, because that end is light, but it can be coming up here. Okay, so those are positioned. I'll come back in and repaint them in a bit, put a bit more detail on them. But now I can come back in and do a bit more on the sky itself. because the paint dries so quickly in acrylic, it's quite a tricky thing painting clouds. You need to layer them a bit. You want them to be scratchy and soft all at the same time. You've not got the blending time that you have, say, with oils, or the way that it runs from into each other in watercolour. So it's just something you have to practice. Too much turquoise. Come back to that in a minute. I am going to start off just blocking in big shapes. Definitely light on the end here. Now over here we've got this bit here which is also got the light on it. I can refine these shapes later, but this is just, again, building my building. And this end has some light on it as well. It's going to be partly hidden by these leaves eventually. That's okay. And there's another little tower here. Shadow in behind here. So again, just starting roughly. So this is the shadow from that tower at the end. Then there's an odd bit here which has got another bit that sticks out. Right, whilst those dry off, just going to re-white a few places within my sky now that's completely dry. Right, As I'm right-handed, I should work from this end to this end. Otherwise, what I'm going to end up doing is sticking my fist in a wet bit. Down at the end here, there's a dark bit. I'm not entirely sure what it is. Another part of a building that's going behind this leaf, but it's in shadow. So we shall keep it as such. There is also some embankment that goes on behind here, and greenery. It disappears. I may just take another leaf out there, I'm not sure. Just starting to imply where the water's going to be and the colours that are in it. So just doing it bit by bit. Coming back into the next part of the castle. This is quite a complicated bit. There's shadows, there's a little turrety thing, lots of windows. So I'm just going to do this whole section here carefully. There's a little bit of shadow darker back here. Now we've got this turret that sticks out here. Oops. Don't need gloop on my brush. Doesn't go all the way down. So we come back into our shadow colour, and that comes down here to about there and then cuts in. Just going to get the sort of background colour and shape first. Let's come back to the shadow first of all. This comes in, there's a bush in the front, that's why. When in doubt, bung in a bush. I'm going to come all the way along just building like this, with just building the shape of the structure, and then I'll come back in and do windows and stuff. There's lots more colours within this, it's not flat. Now this one here is light, but not quite light. There's a few extra colours as we sort of come down to the base here. Bit there. This does have quite a dark sort of top to it. Then this next bit is quite light. Again, it's got a little dark line at the top, which I'll add in a minute. We're coming across here, it's a bit of yellow ochre, a bit of white, a bit of ultramarine, just to give me these colours. Now this is darker than here, there's a bit of that red gold colour coming into here in places. There's more of that coming along this way. So I'm putting this down now, getting a little bit closer. I'm putting some of this down with just more sort of textural brush marks. Now just under where there's that sort of reddish colour, there is quite a light streak that comes across. In this middle bit there is a mixture of lighter bits and the redder bits. So that's what we shall do. It's like little patches of different coloured bricks, stone, whatever it is used to build a castle. We have this sticky outy bit. This sticky outy bit also has some of that red gold. Okay, need to define this shape just a little bit. It's really quite a strong edge to it. Now this little sticky outy bit does actually seem to have a bit of moss growing on the roof, so that's a little bit green, which is quite nice because it introduces a slightly different colour. We do have this dark bit just under that edge. I never put my dark a little bit along there. smudge that around a bit. Right, so we've just got this last end block to do. And then we can come back in and actually start putting some of the details onto it. So again, this is a medium light colour. Starting off just by putting more paint down, just to make sure I've got a decent cover of paint. Then I can start with a few details. Now, this edge here is quite light. Which makes it stand out against that one next to it, which helps. Then we've got some quite light bits going on at the front around these windows, which will come in shortly. Different layers of that. Then we do actually have a very light bit, which is on this return here. And also comes down the side, is very highly illuminated. So I need to grab my dark now just to give the contrast. I'm using ultramarine, umber and some of my light red. And there is a little bit of dark that comes in here. also want to use a little bit of this on this front bit here. I'll fade it out a touch, but it's just, again, just to show it up against everything else. A tiny bit of that along that edge there. I might have to do that again once it's dry. Not sure it'll stay until the background is dry, but I can always come back in and do this. Some of my red bricks along the front. I don't want to make it the same colour as that shadow. I might have to reiterate some of that shadow. We've got a few things going on down here. There's a bit of light there, but there is also, if I can lift any up, a bit of gold, green going on down here as well. Like we've got the green up here, there's some little bits of that going on down here. And add some detail to it. Right, let's start off with some bigger bits perhaps. This bit that sticks out, few windows coming in down here, a few in there. Skinny window I can just see on the front. Slightly broader window on this surface. Down in the bottom here we've got a little archway. And then around the archway there is a little lighter bit. Again, just want to come back with a few different colours, just in a couple of places. Okay. Just grabbing a dark here. Up here we have gone a bit blocky there, so I'll just adjust it slightly. Again, like we had before, where we've got that dark, there is where the light is just hitting on the inside of this bit of the arch. There's something going on up here, but I can't really see what it is in the shadows. There is this darker line coming across. Right, let's come to this front elevation. We've got our little dark bit along the top there. There is a little window there. Okay, so we're coming on to this bit. There's less on this section, but we do have this magnificent arched window. A very thin line of that colour there. line's not quite even enough. There we go. That's a bit better. Got this sort of line of darker bricks coming along just above this level. Just breaking up this shape a little bit. Now there's a couple of things to put in window-wise here. There's a little double window about here. Single window there. There's no other windows along the top there. But there is this double arch down here. To counter back in with that with some lighter bits. The shadow that cuts across this part of this little roof. So I need to put that in, but then I need this to be really a little bit darker, just so you know where it is. There we go. And there is another shadow bit coming down here that's sort of disappeared. This bit has got some brickwork in it, but it's quite pale, so I'm just going to do it carefully. And this bit on the end is very pale. Right, we've got a water chute sticking out the top here. That's casting a shadow, which I'll do in a minute. Then we've got two little windows here. Little window here. That looks like a little face at the minute, doesn't it? This water chute is just catching the light a little bit. And we've also got some window shapes at the end. There's one on this side at the top, and one down here. One about there. So again, I'm putting the windows in, and then I'm just using some light paint just to square off anything that makes it look more like a brush mark than a window. Something down there. We need to make some dark green for back here, sort of my shadows underneath the trees. I'm using a colour called green black, some of my red gold, and I put in a bit of ultramarine in there as well. And I'm going to have trees coming all the way up to here, but they need something to brace against, to be visible against. Now this bit is, there's a bit of greenery, but this wall does continue part way along here, so I shall try and put that in just a sec. I need this area to dry off for a little bit, so let's come down to this wall. This comes along here, but it kind of disappears under some shrubbery by the time we get part way along. So I'm going to bring it along the edge and then put some shrubbery back over it. So from here, and in this bit I need some more of my dark, because under here we've got that goes around there, and then this is the edge of the towpath coming along here. We've got a wall that comes around here which is quite red, so that fits in with the colours we've been using. So don't need any more detail in that particularly. Right, let's come back and put a little bit of this shrubbery in. It's sort of a creamy sort of colour. Actually, I can put the dark in first. Got other colours to go on top of here in a minute, but just want to get rid of that little gap. Second line that comes along here. Then we have here, there's a little like walkway. So let's see if we can get a nice light grey. Comes to almost here. And I can do those legs again in a little bit once I've done the water underneath them, because I need that to be need to do this bit underneath before I worry too much about that. Right, this bit's dried back a bit, so let's see if I can get that creamy colour into there. It's just really scruffy. I'm going to leave that for a little bit and then come and work along the water's edge here for a bit. Starting off under here is quite dark. Just making my wall grey, so I want a colour that's similar. Fiddle with these later, but this is just starting to put this in. Just smushing this all in a little bit before it dries off too much, and then I can add some more detail. This kind of needs to work if you squint, but not in detail, you know. So at the moment I'm just putting all these little dark ripples into the water, and then I'll put some light ones on as well after. It's tedious, but it's worth it. I might put some more of the dark ones in, but I'm just going to do some light ones now. And then see where we stand. Just putting a few brighter bits into this. This is just done using slightly thicker mix of the paint, slightly stronger, so not mixed with anything or diluted down. Okay, I'm going to come back into this area here. Let's get a bit scrubby first. Yellow ochre and my light red. And then up here it's a bit browner, but there's another tree that is really quite tall. Right, so I've put some scruffy old twiggy bits on top. And where I've left gaps, the branches can come through. That one's a bit thick, so I'm just going to rub it out before it dries. I just spotted a little something. It's covering over, there we go. If I don't do it now, I will forget. This tree in front is in front of the dark here. Then where it comes out into the daylight, that's also got to have some dark branches with it as well. Then take some of my yellow ochre And some white. Just have another little layer. So we've got a couple of trees there. We've got our riverside. Right, let's start by just going over a little bit on what I've already done. So I've got an area, that top leaf is a mixture of red gold and quinacridone magenta. So let's just go back over this again. This is just about initially getting a bit more paint down. Oh, excuse me, that'll teach me for eating peanuts before I start filming. I'm making sure there's no white spots left here. Because there's so many textures with the way I put these leaves in. I just need to make sure I've actually got the picture covered. I think this one is going over this one. Right, so I've just put a bit more paint on there, and I'm now going to come in with just a slightly darker version. I want to kind of flood into where all the creases are. Within this. So then I'm going to use this same dark colour for just shading a few bits. Then I want to come in with a lighter colour, which I'm going to do with the red gold and some white. to come in with my fine brush. Just do some last little details. Okay, it's a start. Oops. Now the reason I've done the leaves like this is when we were there it was so windy, the leaves were blowing all over the place, including into our faces at various points. So it was really tricky, and I have this strong memory of the leaves just being in the air. So that's why I've done these like this.